Welcome to Simon Chardiet's New York Stories. Okay, well, I had to give you a little picking at the beginning. So we're gonna get in these more stories. I had a couple I forgot that kind of tie into this part of my life, like 19 1987, 1988. So I got a couple of stories, just little ones. So when we was living in Kent, Ohio, and our house burnt down, we were renting this whole big giant house. Like 3 stories. It was like $300 a month. You could rent the house back then. You know, the whole thing, and it was right across from the Murrays. Like George Murray, Cindy Murray, Holly, Sally. They were all living there, and it was kind of like the hippie house, in Kent, Ohio. So I was drunk at 10 in the morning, listening to my stereo, and the house got hit by lightning. It was like a thunderstorm in April, and I remember hearing all this rain and thunder, and all of a sudden, I felt this weird kind of like tingling magnetic energy, and this blue ball came up from the floor and hovered in front of me for a second, and then there was just this huge bang. It deafened me. It kind of blew my eardrums out. It blew out the stereo, the refrigerator, all the electricity in the house, everything. Okay, it blew everything out, and I was already drunk, and now I was kind of half deafened by the explosion. So I kind of conked out or passed out, and I woke up, and there was like 2 fingers poking on me, and it was George. And he was like, George, I hate to, George says to me, Simon, I hate to be the bringer of bad news, but I feel it my duty to inform you that your house is on fire. And I was like, oh shit. And I got my guitars and my amps and everything out of the house. Uh, the whole top floor was on fire, right? And what had happened is that the lightning hit the house and the insulation in the wall started smoldering. So it smoldered for a few hours, and later in the day, everything was like burst out. So I'm there. I got my guitars, my stuff in his house. I'm sitting there watching the firemen like spray water on it, and I'm like, oh shit. And George looks at me and goes, "Hey, let's sit here and smoke a joint and watch your house burn to the ground." That's what he said. You know, he's like one of those Chicago guys. Like that's where he's from originally. And they're just like that. If you think people from New York are born, go hang out with somebody from Chicago. So I always thought that was like, George always had some great sayings. Like, let's smoke a joint and watch your house burn to the ground. Like, oh man. Then we moved back to New York. Like Ohio was just not happening. I had an idea that because there was so many bands from Ohio, I could get something going there. But in condition I was mentally, spiritually, physically, everything else. There was no way I could get anything going there, you know. Uh, I mean, I don't regret going out there. It was kind of cool to live in this little small kind of tank town in the Midwest for a while. There was like some cool things like we used to climb up on these abandoned railroad trestles way above the river, and you know there was a lot of good shows. I saw Motorhead came through town. The place they playing was so small they couldn't even use all their equipment. They had like half of their amps and half of everything, but they were so good. And also Voivod came through, and that was like on the Killing Technology tour. I love me some Voivod, you know. Uh, they I love Voivod. They were fabulous. So those were some good things. But go back to New York, and now I'm just right back. You know, I was like, yay, New York. You know, like Motorhead says in their song about New York, you can have yourself a real good time, or you can have yourself a life of crime. And I was determined to do both. So I've been up a couple of days on speed. You know, it's before my speed dealer cut me off. I'm, coming back from, I was out like all night, did a gig, then I went out jamming, just like jamming till dawn. I'm like just fucking, I've been up for 2, 3 days on speed, and I get on the train, L train, to go back to Glendale, Queens, where we was living at. You take the L to like the what the fuck stop was that, Halsey, and then you had to walk up through the whole neighborhood and shit and go into Glendale. It was kind of like Glendale is, there ain't no trains around there. If you know Glen, you had to walk all the way up from like Bushwick to Glendale across the border and everything. So that's what I did. And I'm on the train, and all of a sudden I turn to look, and there was this businessman looking guy in a suit sitting next to me on the train. And I had my guitar and my amp and all my, and all of a sudden there's a purple dinosaur. He's not a person, he's a fucking giant purple lizard. And I was like, oh shit. And I looked back, and it was back to being the businessman guy. I was hallucinating, you know? And man, and that's before Barney came out, like the I love you, you love me, blah 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 blah. Like that was before Barney the Purple Dinosaur, any of that shit. So, man, if I could have like done something with that, I would have been a millionaire because I saw Barney years before. But that's that's how like where I was where I was going. But then I got clean, and getting clean wasn't easy for me, and it wasn't easy for anybody that was around me. You know, uh, and I can't say that when I stopped using that that was that was it. Like I'm the problem. I just can manifest it by any different kind of shit that I act out. So uh, that that is now I had to kind of try to rebuild the shattered finances. I got like a 1-year-old daughter, and she's 34 now. So I started working as a cab driver. But first, when I started going over to that place right in the east side to stop using, I seen this ad in the paper, Chromax is looking for a guitar player. And I was like, oh shit, man, I could get into that. You know, like when the Worms were recording Hanging Out for Your Love, the last day after mixing and mastering it and everything, we walk out of the studio, and walking in was all the Chromax. Like, Harley, John Joseph Mackey, all those guys, and they were walking in because they were about to start doing Age of Quarrel the next day. They were recording it. Like we were walking out, the Worms were walking out, and the Crowmans were walking in. East Side Sound, same studio. So I knew those guys from the neighborhood and everything, and seeing them play. So I went there, and it was in a rehearsal studio, and and it and we played a few songs. They showed me a couple of the songs. We played them, and you know, they were. I played the way I always play. I didn't play like heavy chunk metal or heavy. I just played like myself. And they dug my playing, but they didn't choose me to be in the band. But I got to like audition for them and jam with them for a while. And I had like one day clean. I mean, I was sick. I was like just kicking. It's like 14 years. I was kicking, but I went to audition. But then I had to get a job as a New York City taxi cab driver with like 2 weeks clean, a week clean, and that was like fucking terrible. God, that's like the worst fucking job, driving the yellow cab. You have to lease the cab. So right away you're out of pocket. At that time it was $80. So like you're you gotta pay to work. You gotta give them $80. They give you the cab for 12 hours. It sucks, man. Uh so yeah, those are a couple of more stories I have right from like, my bottom. And one other bottom is I was playing somewhere, and I came out of the bathroom and I heard two people talking, and they were talking about me. They're like, "Oh yeah, there goes that guy. Yeah, he used to be in this big band, Joey Miserable and the Warners, but now he's just a crackhead around the East Side." That's another true story. I heard him talking about me. So, all right, boys and girls, we'll have another chapter of this pretty soon. If you like it, hit the like button. Please leave comments too. We also have 20. I got 25 albums out. Uh, Also, if you want to ever put any virtual tips in the PayPal, here's my PayPal address. But more important, leave me some comments. I always like hearing from you. And I'm playing at Otto's Shrunken Head at 14th Street and Avenue B this Saturday at 4 p.m. with new project I'm in called The Done Wrongs. And let me tell you right now, if any motherfucker knows how to do everything wrong, you're looking at him. All right. Mwah.